Welcome to Your Next Best Chapter, a Central New Jersey divorce and family law podcast.
Welcome to Your Next Best Chapter, a Central New Jersey divorce and family law podcast with Laura M. Diorce. Laura is a highly respected divorce and family law attorney based in Red Bank, New Jersey, with more than 30 years of experience helping families navigate divorce, custody, parenting time, and other complex family law matters. I'm Lisa Mosby, and in today's episode, we're talking about custody and parenting time in New Jersey. Laura will explain how these decisions are actually made, what courts focus on, and what parents should understand early in the process. Welcome, Laura. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Laura, when custody and parenting time come up in New Jersey divorce, how are these issues generally approached at the beginning of a case?
So at the beginning of the case, that's when we usually try to establish the parameters for custody and parenting time. I always tell my clients, don't move out of the marital home until we have an agreement regarding custody and parenting time, because if you do, then we could have a situation where there is no set schedule for that person to spend time with the kids. So usually what we like to do is look at what both people have usually done with respect to the kids and establish a firm schedule with respect to when they're going to see the children and what that schedule is going to look like. So we usually try to do that in the beginning of a case.
And then, Laura, in New Jersey, what does custody really mean from a legal standpoint, and how is it different from parenting time?
In New Jersey, custody basically looks at the different issues regarding the children, their health, their education, their welfare, all of those decisions. And if people have joint custody, which is called joint legal custody, they have a right to be involved in all of those things: where the children go to school, what doctors they go and see, other decisions regarding the children. If a person has only sole custody, or only one person has sole custody of a child, then only one person is making all of those decisions. So those are basically the two types of custody. It's either joint legal custody or sole legal custody. And then parenting time is the actual schedule that we have with respect to when the people see the children and when they enjoy vacation time with the children. And that is really, how we establish parenting time.
And all that makes sense. What factors are courts required to look at when making custody and parenting time decisions, especially when the parents disagree?
So the law recently changed, and the court now must consider the children's preferences. They also must consider the safety of the children. And if they are going to use any sort of mental health professional, it has to be scientifically valid professional and scientifically valid theories with respect to custody. So that is a little change that just occurred with respect to the New Jersey law. So there are also about 14 other factors that the court should consider with respect to custody, and that includes the parent's ability to agree, communicate, and cooperate on matters related to the children, the parent's willingness to accept custody and history of unwillingness to allow parenting time. Also the interaction and relations of the children with the parents and their other siblings, any history of domestic violence or child abuse, the safety of the child and child siblings, if any, the safety of either parent from physical abuse by the other parent, preference of the child when of sufficient age and capacity to perform and make an intelligent decision, input and supporting documentation of a state licensed mental health professional, the needs of the child, the stability of the home environment, and the quality of continuity of the child's education, the fitness of the parents, and taking into any account any assessments administered by court professionals, and the geographical proximity of the parents' homes, and the extent of the quality of time spent with the child prior or subsequent to the separation, the parents' employment responsibilities, and the age and number of the children. And those are all factors that the court looks into when determining what the custody should be in a particular case.
So then, Laura, how does the concept of child's best interests actually play out in real cases rather than just on paper?
So the court will look at all of those factors that we just talked about. And in weighing those factors and analyzing the facts of the case, they'll decide what is in this child's best interest. So if the court believes that there was a lot of domestic violence in the marriage or in the home, and that is not going to be healthy for the child, that is something that the court will look at. Or if one person works 15 hours a day and just cannot physically be available for the children, then the court will look at that factor. And also the ages of the children. If the children are older, if they're usually the age in New Jersey is 14 years of age, where the children actually have some say in the custody situation. But now with this new statute, that may open the door to younger children being able to have a say. The court will actually interview the children. The children will go with the judge in chambers, and they could have an in-camera interview with the judge, and the judge will ask them questions about their life and about what they want. So there are lots of different things that the court looks at, and after looking at all those factors and analyzing the facts of the particular case, the judge makes a decision as to what is in the best interest of this child.
And then when parents are able to reach agreements on custody and parenting time outside of the court, how does that typically change the process and the outcome?
That makes things a lot easier. First of all, you have the two people who know the children best, their parents, making a decision about what we should do with our kids. So, usually I have to say in most cases, people are able taking money out of the equation. I think most people are good people and they care about their kids and they want to be involved in their lives, and they want a custody situation where they know it will work for their family. So when they can make those agreements on their own, it's usually the best agreement, because it's known that when people make their own agreements, those are the agreements that people abide by the most. When someone in a black robe tells you this is when you can see your son, that's different than sitting down with the other parent who loves your child as much as you do and saying, you know what, I get off from work early on Wednesday and I can pick Joey up at school on Wednesday. So I think Wednesday would be a great day for me to see him after school, and then, coming up whatever schedule works for you and the other parent. So when people are able to do that without court involvement, and sometimes they need professionals, sometimes they need their attorneys or they need a mediator to help. But when they're able to do that without court involvement, it's better for everyone. It's better for the kids. It's better for the parents. It's better all around. So when people are able to do that and put their differences aside, those are the best agreements.
You mentioned money, and I'm guessing that may be part of this next answer, but what tends to cause custody and parenting time disputes to become more complicated or prolonged than they need be?
Well, sometimes people want what they call 50-50 custody because they learn through attorneys or, through research that if there's 50-50 custody, there isn't really going to be a lot of child support if the people are pretty on par financially. So some people want 50-50 custody just so that they don't have to pay a lot of child support. Even though they may not be able to do 50-50 custody. They might have a job where they have to, take a bus to Manhattan at 6 a.m. and they don't get home until 10 p.m. Well, you can't really be raising your kids if you're working from, you're not available from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. But they want the 50-50 custody because they don't want to have to give money to the other person. Also, if there are situations where there are drugs or alcohol involved or substance abuse by one parent, those create difficult situations where it's just not a safe situation to place the child with the other parent if they're going to be driving drunk or smoking weed while they have the children or just not caring for them. If, the other party doesn't feel that they need to get a babysitter and they leave a 5-year-old home alone. Like, really just things that would be practical to the most normal people. Those things can create scary situations. I have been involved in cases where one parent has driven drunk with the children. And, then we have to set up very strict guidelines as to when that person sees the children or, what kind of situation it will be, if it will be supervised visitation or if they'll have to do a breathalyzer before they have time with the children. So those, when there's other things involved, such as alcohol abuse, drug abuse, mental health issues, that can create a difficult situation with respect to custody and parenting time.
And Laura, how do changes after divorce, like maybe relocation or schedule shifts, possibly the evolving needs of a child, how do those factor into custody and parenting time moving forward?
Especially in situations where both people have a lot of time with the children, you really do need to live nearby. I mean, there are people where one person lives in Cape May County and the other person lives in Union County, and which are probably 3 or 4 hours apart, and they wanna have 50-50 custody of the children. I mean, it's just almost an impossibility, and it's really not fair to the children. So, um, location of the parties is really important with respect to enjoying, like, a lot of time with your children. It's really best if people could live nearby and, then they can be involved in all aspects of the children's lives. And, you know, they they're they know where the school is. They're nearby. If the child is sick and they have to go to the school to pick up the child, they're not 3.5 hours away. They're 20 minutes away. So location really is important. And I think it's unreasonable to, obviously there are situations where we have people who live really far away, but again, you have to look at what is in the best interest of the children, not what's in the best interest of the parents. Um, with respect to other changes, if there's one person needs to relocate out of state and the other person doesn't agree, those can be very contentious cases because you have to get either both parties have to consent to the relocation out of state, or you have to get the court involved, and that can be a very lengthy, expensive process. If the court is fine with, if people have joint legal custody of their child and one person wants to move to California, that person can move, but taking the child with you is a different situation. Another situation, people just want to relocate because they want to move to Florida. Maybe their parents are there, or they just like the weather. But again, that's not just a decision that you can make on your own. You have to take and, get the consent of the other party or have a court order allowing you to do that. Also, I think over time, sometimes the kids have, as kids get older, they have more responsibilities. They are taking AP classes, or maybe they're going to a school that's further away from their home and they have a lot of commute time, or they're involved in activities. Everyone knows, today kids, they're usually at school till 6 or 7 at night, if they play on the football team and they have practices or they have a game or they play field hockey or they're involved in a school play, the kids have so many responsibilities today that it's stressful. And then at the end of the day, they have to say, well, where am I staying tonight? Am I at mom's or dad's? So sometimes kids reach a point where they might say, especially as they're older, this is too much. Taking AP classes, and I'm up till 2 a.m. doing homework. I need to be in one place. And so the parents kind of have to, again, put their children ahead of themselves and say, you know what? 50-50 custody is not really working here. It's difficult for the kids to go back and forth to both homes. And I have to put my kids' needs ahead of my own or come up with a different kind of schedule. It might be just changing the schedule where maybe sometimes when we have 50-50 custody, the people split the week with the children. So one person will have Monday and Tuesday. The next person has Wednesday, Thursday, and then we alternate weekends. But when if kids are really stressed by what's happening, at that point, the kids might say, you know what, I want to do 1 week on, 1 week off. I'll be with dad 1 week and mom 1 week. So it might just be adjusting the schedule to make we don't want kids that are stressed out. Kids today have, way too much stress in their lives, and we don't need to add something additional on top of everything else that they have to deal with in their lives. So, it might be just sitting down with the other parent and coming up with that change, or it might be going to mediation, or if the other party won't agree, then it might be going to court to kind of have that change come into play. So, but things do sometimes change over time just based on the needs of the kids and the situations with the parties. If one of the parties has a job now that's much more demanding and they can't really comply with the schedule, that might change things. Or maybe one of the parties remarried and the kids no longer get along with the new spouse. That may create a change. So there's just many, many things that can come into play. And, those are all things that might change over time.
Laura, I think that's where we'll leave it today. Thank you so much for wrapping this up and explaining the differences between parenting and custody. I think there's a lot of confusion oftentimes, and this was very helpful in shining some light on the definitions of both of those. So thank you. That's it for today's episode of Your Next Best Chapter, a Central New Jersey divorce and family law podcast. To learn more about Laura D'Orse and her family law practice, visit lauradorselawlaw.com, where you'll find resources on custody, parenting time, divorce, and other family law matters in New Jersey. Thanks for listening, and please remember to subscribe to the show, and leave a review if you found this episode helpful. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.